Hello, my name is Catherine. Welcome back if you watched our vision and values video, and if you didn't, I'd really recommend go and watch that one because that one sets up this video really well. But we're continuing through our series that takes you through this book here, Small Groups, Big Mission. And I'd recommend, if you haven't already gone in our online shop and bought yourself one of these, go and get one. It will help you so much as you journey through these videos. One of my favourite things about this book is that it's not just a book that you sort of read and consume, but it is interactive. There's loads of blank spaces that you can answer questions in, sort of journal and process your way through. So I definitely recommend, there'll be questions in here that I won't ask you. She'll be able to process them in this book as we go. So do go and grab yourself one of these. But today we are talking about building community. Now community, it's a bit of a buzzword, isn't it? I read an article the other day that said like, community is the word of this generation. They love chatting about community, but do they know what it is? And I found that really interesting because I think for a lot of us, we do chat about community, being in community, building community inside the church and outside the church. And we don't really know what that means or how to do it well. And we have an opportunity as the church to step up and to show the world how to build really good community, to have communities that look different to the world around us. I've got a friend that when he moved into his house, he thought, I want to build community with my neighbours. I'm going to get them over. I'm going to host a cheese and wine night and have my neighbours all in my living room, which might seem like a pretty normal thing for you to do. So he gathered some of his neighbours, and when one neighbour showed up and another neighbour showed up, they introduced themselves to each other and realised that they had both been living next door to each other for 30 years and they had never met. One of them leaves for work out the front door, the other one leaves for work out the back door, and they had just never met. They'd never actually even seen each other. They didn't recognise each other as their next door neighbours. How crazy is that? They lived in community by proximity with these people for years and they'd never even met them. We don't want that to happen in our churches, do we? We don't want to be in student groups where we don't really know each other, where you just sort of show up on a Sunday, then you leave, maybe someone leaves out the front door, someone leaves out the back door, and you never really get to know each other. You never really build community with the students around you. So let's look through some ways that you can build really intentional community. Community that will make your friends sit up and think, this is different. I want to be part of this. I want to join your small group. I want to be part of this loving community, this space that is really transformational. It's attractive. So I'm going to outline 6 essentials for building community. The first one, have fun. Sometimes when we get together for a Bible study, we can get uber serious. Now, this is really important. We have to dig into the Word. We have to take the Word of God and the things of God super seriously, do our homework, and really grow in knowledge. But if we lose fun, we've lost the point. Fun disarms people. It breaks down barriers and it helps you to form memories. When you can say to someone, do you remember that time when we did this? How fun was that? How funny was that? Do you remember that? That is where friendship is formed. Fun takes us back to our childlike selves and helps us to relate to people on a personal level. It sort of levels the playing field as well. If someone is super smart, it's helpful to then see them being a bit silly and maybe like pretending to be a different character or putting on a voice or something like that. So how can you have fun with your small group? It might be in your icebreaker. How could you play a really silly game that would help people just be themselves and let their guards down? Have fun. The second essential is share food. Sometimes we can wait for a birthday or some other special occasion, maybe the end of our small group term, to get together and have a meal. But why not make it a weekly habit? There's something about cooking for people and eating with people that communicates that you value them, that they matter, and that you want to spend time with them, that you're saying, this is a regular part of my day, why don't you come join in? Let's eat together. I don't need to decompress over dinner. Actually, I want to share this dinner with you. And in the Bible, we see time and time again Jesus eating with people, cooking for people, cooking fish for his disciples. We see times when he invites himself round to people's houses and says, "You're hosting me. I'm coming to your dinner party tonight." Jesus shows us that there is something very special and important about eating. So in your small groups, how could you do a meal together? Even if you're not an expert chef, if you aren't a super duper hoster, if that intimidates you, how could you start small? Maybe you could start out with everyone brings some cake round. Let's have a cup of tea and cake together. Let's all bake something and bring it. Or you could do a bring and share, which is like you bring one dish, you bring the salad, you bring a pasta, you bring a pizza, or whatever it is. Or you just end up with a whole like oddball feast of food. But it's a great way to get to know people and to show people that you value them and that you are really inviting them into your home and into your life. Share food with people regularly.
The third essential for building community is ask questions. When you ask a question, you communicate to someone, I've seen you, I've noticed you, and I care. And then when you ask a question, you couple that with really good listening. I don't know about you, but I remember as a student having friends that never asked me any questions. Or I'd be in group situations where different people would get asked questions, and I was sitting there thinking, I hope they ask me a question. I hope I get asked. And then not getting asked and feeling like, oh, they don't care, or I don't belong here, or whatever it is. And now they're not intentionally thinking to make me feel like that, but through not asking a question, that is what they communicated. Or have you ever told a story to a friend, and while you're telling the story, you're thinking, I hope they ask this question. I hope they follow up on that when I said that. I hope they notice that I said this. And when they don't, you sort of feel a little bit let down. Or there's a block to your intimacy and it sort of slows down your friendship, doesn't it? So how can you, in your communities, be really intentional in asking great questions? Something that I'm trying to get better at doing, because I'm definitely not the best at this, is praying, God, what question do you want me to ask, and to who, and when? And I'll try and think about that and then see whether in small group there's an opportunity to ask someone that question. And I try and listen attentively so that when someone's speaking, I'm thinking of a question that I could ask them. I'm not thinking about a story I could share or something to impress them about my life, but I'm thinking, what question do they need to be asked that would just unlock another part of this story, another part of vulnerability in them? Sometimes our communities have stopped at a place of vulnerability and they become quite surface level. And normally this is because we've stopped asking questions, or we just stop at the, hey, how are you doing? And we leave it at that. There's no depth, there's no real intimacy because you're not asking new questions. So what new question could you ask this week to your small group? Number 4 is show approval. When I first became a Christian, I was part of a tiny, tiny church in Philadelphia. And one of the strongest memories of that time that I had just become a Christian. I was like a week into knowing Jesus. And the pastor's wife came up to me and she just encouraged me. And she just showed approval for parts of my life that were good. She called things out in my character that she saw, and I remember walking away from that encounter, from that conversation, feeling like I was on cloud 9. It was amazing. I was so happy. I felt so loved and so valued. And now the thing to notice there is I was a week into being a Christian, having spent my whole life being raised as a non-Christian and spending a portion of my adult life as a non-Christian. There were lots of things in my life that I would not approve of now, and I'd look back on and sort of facepalm because I'm like, why did you do that? That's so silly. There were many areas of my life that were, quite frankly, very sinful. But she found a part of me that she could approve of, a part of me she could encourage and call out. So how can you do that in your small groups? How can you really look at people and ask God how He sees them and affirm that and approve of that in them, even if they're living lives that are totally like far from God and different to how you would live your life. How can you show approval to people? Jesus really handled this tension well, didn't he? He was able to approve of people, affirm them, encourage them, and yet not encourage their sin and not approve of their sin, to tell them don't do that anymore. But you are loved and cherished, and this is the gift that you have to give to the world. You can do that in your small groups. How can you really look at people this week and show approval to them? Number 5. This one is kind of the hardest one, guys. It's embrace inconvenience. When you're building community, the road to vulnerability and intimacy is paved with inconvenience. It's the late night calls, it's the knocks on the door, it's the can you come and help me with this, it's my car has broken down. It's the moments that I will drop everything to show up for someone. It's the moments I sit with someone who's vulnerable and wouldn't naturally be my friend and show them that I love them and care for them. It's the moments I choose my community over a night alone, or my community over another group of friends who might even be more fun. Embrace inconvenience. When you make a commitment to a small group, you show up. Even when it's hard, even when it's boring, even when it's tough, and your small group is going through a stage of sort of figuring stuff out and maybe even clashing heads, you show up. Community is inconvenient. It's not confined to 1 hour on a Wednesday night. When you choose your small group then becomes your community for life. You then do life with those people. I know that's a horrible Christian phrase, but I think there is a lot of truth in it. It can't just be one evening a week or an evening and Sunday. It has to be throughout the week. How are you listening to each other? Do you know what people are getting up to? How are you following people up? Embrace inconvenience. Open the door when someone knocks. Say yes when they text. Don't turn people away just because it's a little bit inconvenient. The last essential for building community is being active together. Achieving something with people is way better and way more fun than achieving something by yourself. It also helps to form memories. So how could you, as a small group, serve your local community? How could you get involved with projects or do something together? Sometimes we can get a little bit bored with our small groups. The routine is helpful when it's the same structure, but sometimes you do get to a point and you're thinking, we've been doing the same thing week in and week out for like the whole year. We need to do something different. If you find a project that you can work on as a small group, something you can do actively together, maybe that's sharing your faith as a small group, getting out on campus and sharing the gospel, and then feeding back stories in your small group. People will be excited by that and they will feel a sense of achievement and will be able to encourage each other where they felt, oh, that didn't go so well or whatever. But you'll have memories and that will really help you build community. So what could you do to be active together over the next term? What are some ideas of things that you could do together? Get out there and be active. Well, those are our 6 essentials for building community. And like I said at the beginning, if you didn't watch the vision and values video, go and watch that because that really tees up this video. But I hope you found that helpful. And just to send you away, I'll leave you with this question. Which of these essentials are you really good at? Which one of these are you like, yeah, eating together, we do that every week, easy peasy, we love eating together. And which one are you like, I'd love to explore that, I'd love to look into that more, and actually as a small group we could implement that a bit more. And maybe it's just a personal one, like I want to get better at asking questions. This week I'm going to try and ask a really good question. But instead of just switching this video off, I'd love you just to sit where you are, maybe with a journal, or if you've got this book, you can journal in these boxes here. Just write down which essential sticks out to you as something you'd like to grow in. How could your small group grow in this next term? That's the end of this video. I hope you have a good time reflecting, and I'll see you on the next video. See you later.